You say hope for the future was no shy bloom. I just love that. No shy bloom. Where'd you come up with that? Anyway, hope for the future was no shy bloom, but a blood maddened creature, fanged and toothed, with its own knowledge of history's hostilities and the cages of the present. Hope wasn't soft or tender. It was mean. It snarled. It fought. It deceived. On this day, hope lived in the delivery of gold to a man who might be a scammer, and perhaps hope lived also in opening the doors to a thief. I don't know how you came up to see hope in this way. Almost, that's the opposite of how we normally view hope, is not gnarled and fanged. What was going on that day? Megha?
When I was reading about climate change, I encountered a lot of declarations of hope. We must be hopeful. And the supposition was always that hope is pure and noble and unassailable. And I started thinking about, well, what happens if the manifestation of hope is vicious and is harmful? Think of these characters who are parents and guardians who are trying to protect their kids, and everything they do comes from a place of hope. But it is not a place of collective hope, it's a place of individual hope. Is that still a hope that we can be proud of? Is that still a hope that we will worship? I don't know, but the book for me...
Yeah, that's so good. You're so smart. That just gave me little tingles on my arm. That's right. Your individual hope doesn't mean it's hopeful for everyone else.
Yes.
And did you all find this to be true, that you're thinking about what you would do in a similar circumstance? And I think no matter what you think you would do in the actual moment, you don't know until the actual moment comes. Because we all think that we will be able to hold on to our moral center.
Absolutely.
I think I wouldn't find a reason to be a thief, but who knows? Who knows? That's what you're posing in this beautifully written novel. So I think the circumstances are so dire that some of the characters, as we know, resort to cruelty, like when Dadu steals the orange from a little boy. I don't know if that's cruel as much as it's just like so sad and pathetic. And something we all, as I was saying, we imagine you would never, ever do that. What was it like for you to lead these characters down the path that they chose? Or you chose for them? Dadu was surprised at himself at taking that orange. Yeah.
Yes, that moment, Dadu, the grandfather, stole an orange from another child for his own grandchild, but there was something in him which saw his own grandchild in that stranger's child too. He felt moved when the child pleaded with him, I was responsible for that orange. I put it down for 1 minute. Please give it back to me. So he hasn't completely lost who he is. This is not coming from a place of being cold-hearted. But coming back to your question of leading the characters here, I love thinking of fiction as a way to ask questions. And I want to ask questions with as much vigor and intricacy and complexity as possible. So in order to ask that question of how will we live with ourselves when our love comes up against our moral selves, to ask that question, I had to push these characters into frightening, alarming situations where they help me think through that question and they help me stay with it.
Are you pushing them or are they guiding you? I've heard authors say both. So are you pushing them or are they guiding you? And do the characters come and sort of live in the space with you for a while?
That's a beautiful question. I wrote this book over 6 years. I would say for the first half of those 6 years, it was the consciousness of the book leading me. It was the characters telling me what is truthful and what needs to happen. And that was a time of me narrating the book to myself. And when I knew what the story would be, then it changed and it became for me more about inviting the reader in. How can I bring another person into this world? How can I encourage them to feel what I feel? And then I feel like I was leading the characters a little bit more.
You were leading the characters.
Mm-hmm.
Good job. Good job. Where's Dempna? Dempna?
Here. Hi. To me, the story really spoke to the ideas of fierce love and unrelenting hope. And so, Megha, I wonder, your writing is just so beautiful and lyrical, but yet you left a lot of things kind of not neatly tied up. And so I felt like I had to sit in this discomfort while I was contemplating these unexpected things that occur in life and all of its complexities. How does that come to you as you sit to write?
Fiction helps me think about those contradictions and that space of unease and discomfort where you understand that there are so many contradictions in our lives. There is the ferocity of love, and there is our ethical obligations and our kind of moral sense of who we are. And fiction becomes then a space to sit with those contradictions, to understand that the truth is not in this answer or that answer, but in that space where nothing can be resolved. And you live with that crowd of unresolved questions, but you live with them while acknowledging them. And that acknowledgement, that space of being truthful, that they exist, these are contradictions, this is how I live, that space feels very fruitful for fiction.
My heart dropped after this line when Ma was dialing. She says, Ma dialed again and again while America slipped through her fingers. Y'all remember that? Can you talk about this idea of longing for something so desperately and coming so close, and the idea of you might lose it?
The emotions that I was drawing on actually came, I don't think I've ever really talked about this, but I got into Harvard from India, and I was so excited, over the moon. I went to the consulate for my visa interview, and the consular officer said, "You are not eligible for a visa because you're getting so much financial aid." And I had that moment of America slipping through my fingers. I thought, I worked so hard. I got into this dream school, and now I'm not going to be able to go because I'm not going to get a visa. And I stood there before her completely powerless. There was nothing I could do. It was her decision to grant me the visa or not. And I stood there before her, and she did something else with the paperwork. She looked at it again, and somehow she changed her mind, and she decided to grant me the visa so I could come here and study. But that moment of you work so hard for something and somebody else's decision, something else, which is a factor completely outside your control, can take it away from you. I think it shows up in our lives in many different ways.
And you then use that moment in this story that is fiction.